for the last oral reply session for this quarter. We're live there now.
Honourable Speaker, and thank you, Honourable Deputy President. The exploitation of vulnerable South Africans during ANC election campaign is widely reported and documented. It has even sparked outrage in the ANC's own Facebook page. And at numerous occasions, people have said to us that they are tired of seeing food parcels only during election campaigns. So the question would be, I would like to ask the Deputy President, how will the government ensure that there will be no trucks driving around asking people to vote for ANC while handing out taxpayers' food parcels and ANC paraphernalia? And also, will the Deputy President please explain the steps he will take to prevent this exploitation from happening?
The Honourable the Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I should say that we clearly need to make a clear distinction on this. Social assistance is one of those weapons that the government is using to fight poverty. That is what we are doing. So when people who are in distress, when people who are in need are given one assistance or another, be it food parcels, be it blankets, be it a number of other assistance measures, it should never be read as the ANC, which is the governing party, buying votes. The ANC does not need to buy votes through giving people food parcels. The ANC as the governing party has enough experience, has the right policies, and has enough capability to convince people to vote for them rather than through buying them through food parcels. So the food parcels that are given out, and they are also given out even in non-ANC controlled provinces. The Western Cape does so, and indeed other provinces. And you can therefore not say that when people are hungry and are under stress and distress, when they are given assistance, that it is for buying votes. That you will not see from the ANC. We give people support because they are in need. That is what we do as the ANC.
The Honourable Kwankwa.
Thank you very much, Speaker, Madam Speaker. But recently, even the report, I want to extend this matter a little bit further to include the matter here, EPWPs, Extended Public Works Programs. In the Standing Committee on Appropriations, the report of the Standing Committee on Appropriations, a budget vote, highlights it as an observation in the concern of the politicization of that program. It's a matter that we've raised in the past as political parties that did not receive much attention. But I think now that it's contained in a parliamentary report, something needs to be done by government because it's very prevalent. What is your government going to do to ensure that the EPWP program is not used as a tool to prop up the ruling party's campaign in an effort to try and show people that you're creating jobs now that the elections are around the corner? Thank you.
The Honourable the Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The IMC, which the President has asked me to chair, which deals with public employment programs, deals with matters that affect employment, EPWP, and we get sight of precisely what is happening throughout the country. The issue that you're raising had been raised in the past, and we have made sure that public employment programs are not used for advancing the party political interests of any party. And when the governing party, which is the African National Congress, set out its targets and objectives, that it will create 6 million job opportunities, and we're almost halfway to that target now. It was not aimed at getting its supporters into these programs. It was aimed at getting a plethora of South Africans to participate in this. And I'd like you to believe me that I have spent quite a bit of time going throughout a number of our programs throughout the country. And I often take time to ask people privately to say, are you satisfied with the way the public employment program is being run? And nearly all of them say, yes, we are satisfied. And they even go further to say the councillors who are here and the officials who are here are doing it on a very open and transparent manner, and they invite whomsoever in the community to participate. So that gives me a great deal of satisfaction. But I must say, however, Honourable Member, that you do note the comment that we have made, and as the IMC, we will make sure that these programs are forever utilized to advance the interests of all South Africans. So thank you for raising it again. We will keep a watchful eye on precisely that type of behavior. Thank you.
We now move to question number 6, which has been asked by the Honorable Sheikh Imam of the NFP. The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa clearly outlines the process of the appointment of members of the Executive Councils in our provinces. And Section 132 of our Constitution is quite clear on this, in that it states that the Executive Council of a province consists of the Premier as the head of the council, and no fewer than 5 and no more than 10 members appointed by the Premier amongst the members of the provincial legislature. The Premier of a province, therefore, appoints the members of the Executive Council. He or she assigns their powers and functions, and he or she may dismiss those members that he or she appoints. I'm not aware of any plans by the government to amend the Constitution to give national ministers the powers to appoint MECs in provinces. As it is right now, it does not happen in any of our provinces, as MECs are appointed by premiers. National ministers and MECs are nevertheless expected to continue to work closely on matters relating to their specific departments, as envisaged through the constitutional principles of the interrelatedness and interdependence of our constitutional architecture. And in this regard, the concept that we crafted when we drafted our Constitution of cooperative governance is given more life through the way in which national ministers and MECs cooperate to advance the interests of South Africans through the various departments in which they are deployed. Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, this is exactly what my point is. If you look in that gallery, Honourable Deputy President, in that gallery, I have Charmaine Adams, who lives in the city of Cape Town and has applied for a house for 25 years, and nothing is happening. We have in that gallery Daniel Butland, 65 years old, living in an RDP house without a roof for 5 years. We have Shireen Peterson also living in this gallery, no water and sanitation for over 20 years. We have Tasneema, who will tell you, Honourable Deputy President, they cannot even go out after dark. We have 80-year-old Lena Vinfockel, who will also tell you, Deputy President, that the RDP house that she is living in is falling to pieces. Now, Honourable Deputy President, we have Marianne Adams, who will tell you that due to no sanitation, feces are dumped outside their homes, which is a health hazard. with no health facilities. Now, Honorable Chair, Deputy President, in light of the fact that these decisions are made by government, by national, that MECs are appointed by premiers, this seems to be some limitations. And as a result thereof, all these people that are underprivileged suffer the consequences. What is Department of Government going to do about providing a quality health and a quality life to our people, given the fact that your powers are limited and MECs make the decision and marginalize our people because of who you are and what you
Honorable
are?
Sheikh Imam, your time is over. The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker.
Point of order, Speaker.
Was the Honorable DP, can you please take the seat
DP.
while I take the Honorable...
Speaker, I apologise to the Deputy President for interrupting him. But can you, we've had the gallery participating in proceedings today. Can you please remind the gallery not to participate, please?
Indeed, our honourable guests in the gallery are kindly requested not to participate in the goings-on in the chamber. Not by raising your hand or clapping your hands. You are just expected to be neutral spectators that sit and observe. We, with respect, would appeal to you. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. And I think Honorable Imam has added a lot of color and texture to his supplementary question by having some of the people that he's referring to in the gallery. And I take it that they are all based here in the Western Cape. And that being based here in the Western Cape, they are experiencing all these problems and difficulties as a result of one failure or another by the government here in the Western Cape and by the relative MECs. Now, I really feel touched, truly touched, and I'd like to say to those guests who are here in the gallery that we really apologize for the failing of our government to meet the aspirations that they all had, that some of them live in RDP houses without roofs. That should not be the case. They should not be living in houses where there are feces that are flowing right in front of them. They should not be on a waiting list for houses for more than 20 years or so. That we apologize for. But in the end, in order to make government more effective, government does need to be closer to the people, and MECs and indeed councillors that we appoint need to be the type of councillors who are going to pay close attention to the needs of our people, who are going to know the experiences of our people, and in the main, they should be people from the community so that they can associate more closely with the needs of our people. And I don't know whether that is the case here or not. And all I can say, Honorable Imam, is that these matters obviously need to be addressed and attended to. And I would say that clearly there needs to be attention that is given. They should be reported to the government here in the Western Cape. And indeed, even the National Department should be willing and be prepared to take them up to see the extent to which we can assist our people who have taken the trouble to come here to Parliament. And that is something that we ought to be doing as a caring government and as a government that takes the interests of our people at heart. So I would welcome the opportunity that this problem should be put to government officials initially here in the Western Cape, and if nothing happens, they should also be escalated at the national level. Thank you very much.
Then Honorable Mileham.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, At the outset, let me state that this question is bizarre in the extreme. The Honourable Sheikh Imam would do well to read the Constitution, and if he has read it, to try and understand it. In addition to what the Deputy President has already said, Section 41(1)(g) of the Constitution states that all spheres of government and all organs of state within each sphere must exercise their powers and perform their functions in a manner that does not encroach on the geographical, functional, or institutional integrity of another sphere. And yet the Honourable Sheikh Imam would have the national government usurp that constitutional authority by having national ministers appoint MECs in another democratically elected sphere of government. The Honourable Sheikh Imam would do well to examine the shocking state of affairs in his one municipality
Point
that
of
they
order,
do
Speaker.
Order. Is that a point of order? Is it a point of order, Honourable?
Yes, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Milham, can you take your seat? Yes, Honourable.
No, one was laboring under the impression that the Honourable member would ask a question, but seemingly he's now casting aspersion on our member. We take a very strong exception to that. He must focus on his question.
Honourable Kodjubani Kamalako, honourable members. Yes? Honourable Kubisa, Ngiyaxolisa. The honourable member has a right to actually make his point, including by making a commentary before he gets to the question. Hopefully, Honourable Milham, you'll get to your question.
Yes, Chair. So the Honourable Sheikh Imam would do well to examine the shocking state of affairs in the one municipality they do govern, namely Zululand District Municipality, before he throws stones at the best-run municipality and province in the country. So my question, Deputy President, is this. What steps are being taken in the national sphere, and here I'm talking about both executive and legislative, to hold provincial governments accountable? Where are they reporting on their key performance indicators? Who oversees their budgets and expenditure? What actions are being taken to bring underperforming provinces, and more specifically, corrupt or maladministrating provincial executives into line?
Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. As I answer this question, I thought that what Honourable Imam had been referring to was the extent to which you could also strengthen cooperative governance, the interdependentness of all spheres of government, rather than stress on there being separate forms of government or spheres of government, to stress more how these spheres of government can work together to advance the interests of our people. And that is the approach that I would take, that how do we deepen cooperative governance? And the second part, I guess, of the question or the statement is how is national government ensuring that there is good performance in all spheres of government? We have the Presidential Coordinating Council that is chaired by the President that at all times, whenever it meets, seeks to review precisely what is happening in all provinces. And that structure is aimed at deepening the cooperation amongst all provinces in relation to national government. And when it comes to budgets, we've got this fiscal commission that is meant to do precisely that. The Auditor General, in the end, is the one who keeps a clear check of what is happening in provinces and indeed in national departments in relation to the expenditure of our finances. So there is sufficient check and balance between the national and the provincial. And clearly we do need to deepen that, to broaden that, to make sure that it becomes more effective. If there are any ideas that the honourable member is able to put forward as clear proposals, I invite him to bring them forward, so to bring his wisdom forward, so that we can be better enlightened on how all forms of government or all structures of government can work better. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President, I would like to welcome your initial response before to the original question. To say, as a staunch federalist myself, believe the power needs to be based at grassroots, bottom up. And what we need to do, as you correctly say, is that we need to give greater emphasis to cooperative governance. So my question is, Honorable Deputy President, has any consideration been given to the Van Zyl-Slabbert report, which seeks to reform the electoral system so we can ensure greater accountability and ensure that we do not have just the proportional representation system, which has elected representatives mainly accountable to their political parties and not to the communities. For us to be able to strengthen the balance that you speak about, we need to transcend the power even further. And secondly, just quickly, is the issue of the min-max. To how do we strengthen those bodies to ensure that the cooperation is there and that the departments speak to each other from provincial and national government, and to what extent can then those be transcended down to local government municipalities, where in the essence all development is local and would need to strengthen local government. So just those two issues, Deputy President. Thank you very much.
The Honorable the Deputy President.
The proposals that were made by the late Van Zyl-Slabbert are one of those many proposals that have been floated around in relation to how we can effect some changes, some twiggings to our constitutional architecture. And those matters are matters that all of us need to consider. All of us as political parties, we need to debate those. We need to see whether they have any form of efficacy, whether they will suit even the times that we live in. And if we can get to the point where we believe that the types of proposals that were put forward by Van Zyl-Slabbert, and indeed many other constitutional proposals that have been put forward, we should debate them and see the extent to which they can be taken forward. So that is my answer to that one. And in relation to how can we make sure that the various levels of government speak to each other, in government as it is now, the way we have been able to tighten this process that you're talking about is through the continuous meetings and coordination of government work through the meetings of ministers and MECs. The MINMAC meetings continue and take place on an ongoing basis, dealing with real-life situations, real-life projects that affect the lives of our people. So that enhances the coordination that we have in government, but more broadly, there are many other structures that we have. For instance, the PICC, the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Council, also involves quite a number of people from provinces, the Presidential Coordinating Council that I spoke about, and that helps us to coordinate the work that happens in government at all levels. And when we come to local government as well, provinces do take care themselves to make sure that the various municipalities in their domain do actually coordinate things jointly with them. And this they do by definition, and this they also do by virtue of the laws that we all live under. So there is quite a lot of coordination, and where coordination can be made better so that each level of government speaks to the other, we need to look at that, and the ideas that may be put on the table are ideas that we will be quite willing to consider. Thank you very much indeed.
The Honorable Boy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you for being for such eloquency, Deputy President, in how you have put the issues up. The challenge is, and what the member have raised, is that it seems as if there's a continuously inefficiency in all the structures that you have outlined in the Western Cape, that they are not able to do the work that has been given to them by the national government and even by the Constitution. How do you assist in that environment, Deputy President, to be able to get to assist the people that are presently on the gallery? And it's quite clear that the honorable member is raising it out of that context, that he is quite worried about the state of things in the Western Cape.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
What Honorable Sheikh Imam has raised clearly is a matter of great concern to us at national government level, that we have a plethora of problems that are being experienced by our people, some of whom are here in the gallery. And clearly, when it affects housing, the Minister of Human Settlements would be very, very concerned that such laxity of implementation of various rules and regulations is happening in this province, and if it's happening elsewhere, she will be the first to be concerned. And if it regards water, the Minister of Water and Sanitation will also be worried. In the end, the national government must, by definition, have oversight over what happens throughout the country. It must have oversight and get involved. And we should not hide behind the leaf of some constitutional provision which says, leave us alone, because we live in a country where there has to be cooperative governance, because we are dealing with our people whose needs are urgent, and we need to redress the imbalances of the past. So therefore, we cannot just say, no, leave us alone, we are this province or that province, we know what is best to be done. So my answer to you is that oversight role by national government should mean that, yes, we should get involved in making sure that the provinces do actually implement what they are meant to implement to advance the interests of our people. Because we cannot allow some of our people to live in terrible conditions whilst others live in much better conditions. The national government cannot allow that. Thank you very much.
I now come to question number 7 from the Honorable Khadebe, and I call upon the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, just a few weeks ago, a top-class delegation of some 200 people from South Africa, which had been constituted as Team South Africa, went to the World Economic Forum meeting in Kigali in Rwanda. Rwanda, the land of 1,000 hills. Now, this multi-stakeholder team, which represented our country, came from government, business, civil society, and a number of media representatives as well. And in all their engagements during the WEF Africa, the members of Team South Africa conveyed one common message to the rest of the continent and indeed to the world. And that message was, South Africa is a desirable, dependable, and worthwhile destination for investment. What the team had essentially gone to do was to go and make contacts with a number of people who tend to attend those types of conferences, and hopefully to move from contact to contract that will bring investment into South Africa. Members of Team South Africa participated in various formal sessions of that forum. Many also had bilateral meetings with business people, with government people. There was a lot of intergovernmental discussions with a number of people from various countries. And in our interactions as government, and based on the feedback that we got from a number of business people who attended, we thought and felt that our message as a country was well received. Those we met with were well informed about South Africa and appreciated the important role that our country plays in the economic and social development of the continent. They agreed with our message that South Africa has a dynamic and stable economy with solid economic fundamentals, and that our democracy is also robust, mature, and that it is a secure democracy, the type of democracy that gives rise to a stable country for investments. They recognize that South Africa also has a sound regulatory framework that provides protection to investors, and that we have a diversified economy that offers world-class business services as well as infrastructure. And Madam Speaker, several of the people we met raised issues of political stability, and we're keen to know how South Africa was responding to the difficult global economic environment. And when we explained to them that the foundations of the South African economy are strong enough to withstand the current turbulence that we're going through, a number of them felt that this could be a good destination for investment. And our African brothers and sisters felt that South Africa should continue to be the gateway through which investments can flow into the continent, and indeed were even more keen to welcome South African companies that operate in their part of the continent. So, Madam Speaker, we had an opportunity to share experiences and also to learn from what others are doing on the continent. A number of African countries are truly rising, and they have a lot to offer us as South Africans in relation to a number of areas of life. And we were very pleased that we were welcomed with warm arms in Rwanda, and that we were able to share our experience and learn a lot from those that we met. So we had a fantastic journey. Team South Africa flew the South African flag very high in Rwanda. Thank you very much.
Now, honorable members, before I call on supplementary questions, may I remind honorable members that we should only ask one supplementary question. I now welcome Honorable Khadebe to ask the first supplementary question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, I'd like to say Happy Africa Day to all Africans and South Africans. Honorable Deputy President, one of the founding fathers of the OAU, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, said that the liberation of the continent, political, was going to come from the north, but the economic emancipation of the continent was going to come from the south, from South Africa. It is really appreciated that all the other leaders of the African continent see South Africa as a gateway to investment into Africa. But one of the shortcomings of the African continent is the lack of the intra-Africa trade, the lack of quality foreign direct investment, and also the lack of infrastructure which can promote trade within the African continent. And our own NDP recognizes the fact that South Africa now, at this point, only trades about 30%. 30% of its trade is with the continent. And then it expects that by 2030, it must be 30%. The trade must be with the continent. What is the current crop of the African leadership doing to attract foreign direct investment and promote intra-Africa trade and ensure that there's proper infrastructure to promote the growth of the African continent? Thank you.
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, much of the discussions that took place in Rwanda had to dealt with how we can get African countries to be more interconnected, not only in as far as digital matters were concerned, because that was the main theme of the conference, but also when it comes to trade, and also how we can enhance infrastructure development that will lead to the people of Africa being able to trade better with each other, being able to travel a lot easier, and being able to do the developmental work that we are meant to do as a continent. So all that occupied quite a lot of space and time in that conference. And what we found pleasing was that the talk about infrastructure, be it electrical, be it roads, be it the internet, be it river or dams and laying out water, was common amongst all the participants who were there. And indeed, we found very pleasantly we found that all the African countries that were there were just talking about the same thing of infrastructure development. And as we all know, infrastructure development can lead to the connectedness of our continent in as far as trade is concerned. Trade was one of those issues that was highlighted quite strongly, that in order to advance our economic fortunes as a continent, we need to be trading more and more with each other, but in order to do so, we need to extend those infrastructure link-ups that we should have, like roads and rail and what have you. But then the main focus, as I said, was the extent to which we can use technology to extend the levels of connectedness on the African continent. And we found that technological advancement was speeding up the progress on the continent in exponential ways. And that we found quite pleasing. And in the end, without being arrogant, without being forward at all, South Africa was able to present itself as a good destination for investment, but we were very careful not to project ourselves as the best in class. We projected ourselves as being part of the African continent, as being willing to develop in tandem with the continent, and where we can lend assistance, we should do so, and where we can learn from others, we should be able to do so. And we concluded that we've got a symbiotic relationship with all countries on the continent, and our task as South Africa must be how best we can advance the interests, not only of our own country first, but also of the continent as a whole when it comes to matters of development. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Mainir.
Thank you, Speaker. Now the Deputy President tries to assure us that South Africa's message was well received at the World Economic Forum. But of course, that's not what the transcript of his media briefing in Rwanda on the 13th of May 2016 suggests. The truth is the Deputy President had to convince observers that South Africa, as he concedes, was a stable democracy. Here's the Deputy President, and I quote, "In relation to the political landscape, South Africa is a stable democracy. What people read about in the media is not unique to South Africa. We can assure observers that South Africa is a stable democracy." So will the Deputy President tell us whether it was embarrassing to have to convince observers that South Africa was a stable democracy at the World Economic Forum, and whether in the light of this, he's now considering running for the leadership of his party and removing the Honourable Jacob Zuma as President of South Africa?
The Honourable, the Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker, I can tell Honourable Mania that it was most uplifting to tell our brothers and sisters on the African continent that South Africa is a very stable democracy. We've got a durable democracy. We've got a stable constitution that enhances our stability. And we were also quick to applaud, listen to this, we were also quick to applaud a number of other countries on the continent that you may not know of that are so stable. Countries that have embraced democracy, countries that are moving in tandem with us on the democratic stability route and making sure that that democracy yields economic benefits. Now, we've gone beyond where you are, because you are still very parochial, my dearest Mania. You are still very inwardly focused. We are now looking at the benefits of stability, the benefits of democracy are economic development. And that was the buzzword, and you were not even there. I mean, really, seriously. You should have come along with us. Next time, do come along. The buzzword was economic development, how we can use our strength, which is our democracy, the human capital that we've got in our country and indeed on the continent, to bolster our economic fortunes. Now, I will ask you a question. Are you prepared to run for the leadership of your party and oust Maimani? Maybe you should answer that question first, because we as the African National Congress have no problem. We've got a strong leadership that is leading the party, that is leading the country, and you just look around. All these leaders are charging ahead, and you will see for yourself on the 3rd of August. Thank you.
Honourable Speaker.
No, Honourable Mbenir, you've had your chance.
To answer the question, if the Deputy President answers the question,
you have had your chance, Honourable Mbenir. I now would like to have the Honourable Kubisa to ask a follow-up question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, I believe among a plethora of issues you've referred to, there was some focus on the issue of good governance, job creation, poverty, unemployment, health conditions, knowledge exchange, wealth sharing, terrorist attacks, and climate change. Would you say at the end of the conference, these matters were given urgent attention? Thank you.
Honourable Deputy President.
I can say without any equivocation that yes, they were given attention. And what also made sure that those matters were ventilated and were attended to was the presence of a number of leaders from various countries. It was not only President Kagame was there, President Kenyatta was there, a number of presidents from the west of Africa were there, and they made sure that issues that are germane to the development of the continent were actually addressed. And all those issues that you mentioned, including climate change, Honourable Member, were also addressed. And let me say that they were addressed with a deep sense of seriousness. And they were not just ticking the box. These leaders, and indeed the delegates who were there, were actually focusing. And they were focusing in a way that went to looking at the numbers, the financial indicators. The president of the African Development Bank was there, playing a key role in the conference. And as a banker, he was able to say, we are prepared to finance the building of this dam, this road, and this railway, and so forth. So many of the issues that you are raising, and including issues like terrorist attacks, Kenya has been exposed to a number of these. They were also addressed and attended to. And they were addressed within the context of 2063, the objectives that the continent has set up for itself. But it also went beyond that. They were also addressed within the context of the UN MGDs. So we were sitting there and not only discussing issues on a parochial basis that affect one or two countries. We were looking at the global goals that all countries have set up for themselves, but we were also looking at ourselves as Africans in terms of 2063, where we want Africa to be. And the other buzzword was the Africa that we want. We were saying, what type of Africa do we want by 2063? And we were asking ourselves, are we already on the journey to achieve that Africa that we want? Are we already implementing some of those goals that we have set up? So in that regard, that forum was a really meaningful forum for all who attended, government, business, media, civil society. It was an uplifting type of forum, but it was also a focusing forum to get us to focus. And let me conclude by saying many people who attended said, we are tired of just hearing speeches. We now want action and implementation. And they said, we want African countries to now go beyond just speechifying. They must now talk about implementation. That is why the African Development Bank was also there. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Esther Reason.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Honourable Deputy President. Energy is essential for economic growth, and you and all the delegates was shown a very comprehensive map showing all of African countries and populations and all their various degrees or percentage of access to electricity. And as you just said now, that you discussed on one of the things how all African states can work together. Was it not a concern then to yourself and your fellow delegates that a fellow South African state with the potential to supply the continent of Africa with clean, affordable electricity is failing not only their own people, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has got 68 million people without electricity, but also us, who signed a treaty with the DRC in 2013 and was obliged to pay $10 million American deposit. Construction was supposed to start on October 15 last year, and to this time, when October 15 came without a sod being turned. Rwanda was the right platform for this. Was this discussed, or will the Grand Inga project only remain an African dream? Thank you.
The Honourable, the Deputy President.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. The issue of energy, indeed clean energy, was one of the central issues that was discussed at this forum. And I'd like you to believe me when I say that the Grand Inga project was also one of the centerpieces of discussion at this conference. The heads of states who were there were talking in the main economic development underpinned by energy generation. It was quite pleasant to hear all these heads of state talking firstly about economic development and saying, in order for us to get there and to have this development, we've got to have energy generation. And they went beyond that, Honourable Speaker. They were now relating the number of megawatts that they are now putting in place to boost their energy generation in their various countries. And then the African Development Bank also reflected on a number of projects, and the Grand Inga project was then also referred to, and it was referred to in a way of saying, we now need to take it forward. And this is where it is stuck. This is what now needs to be done to move the Grand Inga project forward. So I remain confident that the logjam and the bottlenecks that were there in relation to the Grand Inga are logjams and the bottlenecks that are now going to be removed, particularly also as the African leaders will be meeting in Kigali in August. They are also going to discuss this, and the Grand Inga project is also being discussed in a number of other forums. Now, the good thing is that South Africa remains connected and involved with the Grand Inga project, so we are part of it. We have already put some dollars on the table, and we want to see the Grand Inga project moving ahead. And we remain convinced that in order to see the economic regeneration of Africa, energy, and particularly clean energy, is going to underpin all the efforts that we are involved in. And many countries are already moving forward on the energy landscape. And you watch and see. The map that you will see of Africa in the next few years is going to be a bright lit map, because many of our countries in the African continent are going to be generating energy exponentially. And we are marching ahead as a continent. And this being Africa Day, this is something that we should be celebrating, that we are part of an African continent that is on the move. Africa is wide awake, and Grand Inga is going to be a reality, no longer a dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy President. We now come to question number 8, asked by the Honourable Dudley of the ACDP. The Honourable, the Deputy President.
As I was saying today, we join our fellow Africans across the entire continent in celebrating this great day for all of us as Africans, Africa Day. It is a day when we remember the great sacrifices that were made by our forebears, how our leaders have charted us forward to get to the point where we are as many African countries. And we are also enjoined by our continental organization, the African Union, to continue the work towards peace and stability, sustainable development and prosperity of our continent. And guided by these objectives, South Africa, our own country, has participated in the post-conflict reconstruction and development of South Sudan since its independence. We remain engaged in conflict resolution efforts in South Sudan. In this context, we have just returned from a working visit from Juba, where we've been engaged with various role players with a view to consolidating unity within the Sudanese People's Liberation Movement, the SPLM, moving from the premise that unity within the SPLM is a critical component of the creation of peace and stability in South Sudan. We have worked alongside the Secretary General of Tanzania's Chama cha Mapinduzi to unify the various factions of the SPLM. We have also worked with regional organizations, the African Union, the United Nations, and the Intergovernmental Authority on Development in East Africa, also known as IGAD. As a result of these efforts, all factions within the SPLM have now returned to Juba in South Sudan, and a new transitional unity government comprising of all these factions has now been formed, and it is in place. During our visit, we had an opportunity to meet President Salva Kiir, the first Vice President Riek Machar, and the Foreign Minister Deng Alo, and all of them representing the various groupings of the SPLM. All these groupings of the SPLM remain committed to the consolidation of peace as a necessary step towards ending conflict completely in South Sudan. And we can say without any doubt that the guns of war have now been silenced in South Sudan, and the various leaders of that country are now involved in the process of rebuilding peace and rebuilding the lives of their own people. And as co-guarantors of the Arusha Agreement, South Africa will continue to provide the necessary support to the SPLM to consolidate efforts towards the post-conflict reconstruction and development of that country. The people of South Sudan deserve the benefits of peace and stability as a stepping stone towards sustainable development and prosperity. As a country, we commit ourselves to working hand in hand with the people of South Sudan on their journey towards a peaceful and prosperous society. And they welcome the assistance that they are getting from various of their partners around the world, and they are very pleased that South Africa and Tanzania are involved at close range to assist them to rebuild their own party, but also to stabilize their democracy in South Sudan. So we had a good journey, and a journey that was quite worthwhile in terms of the richness of the interaction that we had with the people that we met. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Dudley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, thank you for the feedback. As a result of peace agreements being violated and the unstable situation, the country's economy, of course, is in crisis, and the South Sudanese pound has declined in value, and the cost of goods and services skyrocketed, with food prices at a record high. Have you and your counterpart discussed the South Sudanese economic and fiscal crisis, and has South Africa been asked to assist in any additional way? If so, what are the relevant details? And we're also particularly concerned, as are many others, with a situation where there's a camp in Juba where about 200,000 people have not been receiving UN aid, and everyone is concerned about what is actually going to happen to that 200,000 people. And we were wondering if you had discussed this or you have any information that you can give us. Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
The needs of the people of South Sudan are plentiful. They span quite a number of areas of human endeavor. They relate to health. They do relate to security as well, and they relate to the displacement of not only 200,000, but hundreds of thousands of their own people who are displaced internally. People who now face famine and hunger because the economy has been going through enormous challenges, particularly because the economy is dependent very much on oil extraction. And the price of oil having come down as it has, it means that they face serious challenges. The assistance that we've been giving to the people of South Sudan has been giving a lot of support in terms of building up their structures and making sure that their party functions well. And clearly, they need much more than that. They need much more than just words. And these are matters that they continue to raise with us, and we will need to find ways of how we can assist. We've also been giving them institutional support in terms of getting their people to be better prepared, in terms of capacity building, so that they can run the institutions that are present in their own country. Now, when it comes to those people that you're referring to, it was raised with us, and there are efforts to get not only the UN, but a number of other agencies to lend support, not only to the 200,000 people, but to hundreds of thousands of other people. And the work of beginning to get them to go back to their homes is also about to get underway. So the challenge that is faced by the people in South Sudan is huge, and we remain privileged that we've been trusted enough in many ways. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, in Africa in particular. And when we look at that record, it fills us with a great deal of pride. However, you will agree with me, Mr. Deputy President, it's the economy in Africa. Now, in number 3, to what extent does government then make sure that when we invest resources in Africa to try and make sure that there's stability, we balance it with our national interests, economic interests in particular, so that we don't create stability in those countries for other people to benefit from it? Thank you so much.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Kwankwa, you can be rest assured that clearly, as we move around and interact with various countries, what we seek to promote is South Africa's interests. But we seek to promote that within a broader context of our being part of the African continent. So we are Africans, and being Africans also means that when we advance our interests as South Africa, we also must see the interests of the continent also being advanced. So the two, in our view, are not mutually exclusive. They are inclusive, and we can approach them jointly at the same time. So when we lend assistance to South Sudan, by definition, we're also lending assistance to our own interests as South Africans, and that's how they see it. But they give us a lot more respect, a lot more room to maneuver by noticing that we are not selfish, we are not parochial. As we advance, we are also helping them to advance. And that is who we are. In a way, we could say that is our DNA as South Africans, and that is the type of DNA we must be spreading around. So yes, advance our interests within the broader context of our African agenda. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mukhalapa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Deputy President. President Key signed a compromise deal on the 26th of August 2015. However, he enclosed an annexure that included a list of 16 reservations that he strongly deemed important to self-determination of South Sudan. And this would impede on the attaining lasting peace. The question is, sir, what have you done to address this 16 reservation in order to avoid regeneration of violence and the collapse of the peace agreement in South Sudan? I thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
The agreement that was signed by the leaders of South Sudan is a living document. It's a document that they are walking through themselves. And in a way, it was a confidence-building measure. When he listed all those reservations, he was basically saying these are issues that need to be addressed. And on a daily basis, what we have found and what we were briefed on, the issues that he had raised as big reservations, a number of them are beginning to wilt away, to disappear, as confidence is being engendered. The confidence levels are rising on an ongoing basis, largely because the leaders of South Sudan realize that they can no longer return back to war, that war is not an option. The only option that exists in South Sudan is peace, and how to consolidate that peace. So reservations will be there, but they are the type of reservations that are melting away. When we had an engagement with President Salva Kiir, very little of the reservations were even raised. He was very much more positive, and indeed the other leaders were also very positive in wanting to move the peace process along, aiming at the 24 months or the 30 months that they have, during which time they will go to elections and elect a new government. So the unity government is beginning to function. Yes, do they have challenges? Here and there they have challenges, but they are dealing with them on an ongoing basis with the support of a number of friends that they have or partners that they have. And we happen to be privileged that we are one of those partners that they trust, one of those partners that they know that they can work with. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kuno.
Thank you, Speaker. Happy Africa Day to all of us. May our identity be part of our inspiration. South Africa has been in the heart of peace talks in South Sudan. Following Arusha's agreement that the Sudanese People's Liberation Movement has signed, there were concerns that if not maintained properly, it will create problems in the future. Deputy President, can you expatiate on the programs that we have here in South Africa as part of post-conflict reconstruction and development to sustain and maintain the effort that our country is doing through your mediation? I thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
One of the things that we have been able to share with the people of South Sudan is the experience that we gained from our own transition. A transition that continues as we continue to build our nation, to build our country, and to develop it in a number of ways. We continue to share this with the people of South Sudan And they have found our own experience as very encouraging. Encouraging in that they, having come from colonialism and having come from a war that they fought, they have now achieved peace that was disturbed, but they now know, they also know that they can actually have permanent peace, and our experience stands out as a very, very good precedent and a lesson to them. And so therefore, our engagement with the people of South Sudan and the leaders there, and indeed with the various organizations that we tend to interact with, is a process that is very, very enriching in that we are able to share with them precisely the journey that we have traversed and the journey that we continue to traverse as we build our nation, and we inform them how we've been able to overcome a number of difficulties and challenges, some of which challenges they are currently going through. And recently, we've also been able to outline to them how we went through a government of national unity and the challenges that are inherent in that type of process. And this is what they are now learning from as they are now united as a government of unity, moving towards consolidating unity of their own party. So the experiences that we are having with them are really great experiences, and we believe that will help them consolidate their peace. And they are also learning a lot from the Republic of Tanzania as they learn from Chama cha Mapinduzi. So the process in South Sudan is a process, Madam Speaker, that we can be proud to have contributed a little bit in consolidating, and as it consolidates further, I'm sure as South Africans we can be proud that we've made a contribution to the rebuilding of a nation that was devastated by war and colonialism. Thank you very much.
Honourable members, that concludes questions to the Deputy President, and I thank the Honourable, the hard-working Deputy President. Honourable members, we now come to questions to ministers in the Peace and Security Cluster. And I now call, we come to question number 87 that has been asked by the Honourable D.D. Gamede to the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans. The Honourable, the Minister.
Thank you very much, Speaker. As we indicated during our budget vote debate 2 weeks ago, we've established a defense review implementation project team called DRIPT. The financial year 2015-16, of course, will be devoted to planning the implementation of the Defense Review 2016. The DRIFT consists of 2 military and secretariat planning teams, and the DRIFT has already identified non-cost or minimal cost-driven interventions which will improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of our organization. The plan is based on ministerial priorities whose implementation will be key to the realization of the targets of the first stage of milestone number 1 of the Defense Review 2015. You will recall, Chairperson, that, and honorable members, that milestone number 1 of the Defense Review talks to, 1, arresting the decline of the capabilities of the Defense Force, but also the rejuvenation of the South African National Defense Force itself. So some of the critical areas identified here is developing a proper defense funding model, a human resource renewal strategy, a capability renewal,
and the continuance of the ordered operational commitments. In this regard, Chairperson, 2016-17 Annual Performance Plan consists of 12 outcomes which can be achieved within the current budget allocation. These are as follows: sustained ordered defense commitments, capability sustainment and renewal, maintained defense capabilities, facilities, restructuring of the South African National Defense Force, Department of Defense Human Resources Management, enhancement of military discipline, etc. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Well, that was the live crossing to Parliament, where Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has just wrapped up his question and answer session in the National Assembly. Well, overall, a much calmer, more temperate mood in Parliament this afternoon than what we saw last week. An eloquent, robust delivery from Mr. Ramaphosa that covered energy generation, housing backlogs, technology issues and substantial progress in South Sudan's peace process. Mr. Ramaphosa also reiterating that South Africa remains committed to promoting peace and conflict resolution on the continent. Well, he also says social assistance by the government now